Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Capital and Kayfabe. I'm your co-host, JP John Paz from the Two-Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is the political pundit himself, the journalist, recently called the greatest journalist of all time by somebody he took a picture with at Rand Paul's birthday party. He's Mr. Jack Hunter. Jack, how you doing?
Good to be with you. That person must have been drunk, but I'll take the
Yeah.
compliment either way. Good to be with you, John.
Yes. So obviously there's a lot of craziness going on, but you need to address this first. Vladimir Putin, this is an actual quote, Russia would not have invaded Ukraine if Donald Trump was still U.S. president. What is going on here? Is this true? And what do you make of all this?
Well, he's Vladimir Putin. He's a bad man, so you take that with a grain of salt. But I have to say, when Russia invaded, one of the first thoughts I had was if Trump was president, this wouldn't be happening. Why? Because in Trump's first term, he did reach out and have relations with Putin, as any American president should do with the other nuclear-armed superpower, as Ronald Reagan did, as George H.W. Bush did, as Barack Obama did, as Bill Clinton did, as George W. Bush did. That's what you do when you're president. But we had this weird thing in Trump's first term where Democrats were their Trump derangement syndrome. Oh, he works for Putin. Jonathan Chait at the New Yorker had this stupid lying column about Trump supposedly being a Russian asset since the 1980s. I mean, making up the most conspiracy theory, stupid stuff you could imagine. And Trump's like, F that noise. I'm going to have relations with Russia. This guy's a bad man. So are many other around the world. I'm the president of the United States. That's what you do. That's your job. And that relationship, I don't think Putin would have done that. Trump didn't threaten to bring Ukraine into NATO, which is at the heart of all this, no matter how many people want to deny that. And this has been going on for a half century. So many people who understand geopolitics have always known that, hey, NATO's at the heart of this. And Russia said that. And yeah, we are where we are. I don't think Putin would have invaded. He said he wouldn't have invaded. What he says is kind of less important, but I think he's right. I'm like, well, he knows himself, I guess. I think what he's saying is true. I thought of that just as a foreign policy observer who didn't even vote for Trump then. I didn't vote for Trump until 2024, but I knew that much. It made sense.
Now, monks are coming out there and basically wanting him to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He's known as the quote-unquote peace president. What is going on here? I don't even know. I think I lost count. I think it was 7 peace deals brokered, possibly 8 peace deals. Like, is this true? Is he the peace president, quote-unquote?
Well, if I'm going to criticize him, one of my favorite things he did when he first got in office in his second term was send Steve Witkoff, his envoy, to Israel and tell Netanyahu there's a ceasefire. And they were like, nope. And he's like, oh, yeah. And there was one. So that was heroic. Since fallen apart, there's been some decisions. Striking Iran was not a favorite of mine. I was worried it would lead to a larger war, which is always a concern. Thankfully, it is not. But a number of peace deals, and what's going on with Ukraine, Russia is at the top of that. If Barack Obama received a Nobel Peace Prize for merely having anti-war rhetoric in the 2008 campaign and saying what Bush and Dick Cheney did in Iraq is bad, and I'm going to do the opposite, and he was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize and then proceeded to extend the Iraq war for many years and, get involved in Syria and bomb Libya, which Obama himself said was his greatest regret when he left the White House. If he has a Nobel Peace Prize, why wouldn't Trump be considered for actually trying to broker a peace? Seems like a no-brainer to me. If you are one of these TDS people that is the word Trump sends you, like, you're not going to want to hear that. But if you're being logical, yeah, that makes sense.
Do you think that the Nobel Peace Prize, he could ever really, truly win it? Or is this just maybe all smoke and mirrors?
I don't know. I do know that I don't know who's on the Nobel committee, but I know that some of the people who voted for Obama regretted it. They've said so publicly, like that we were just caught up in the, like, we hate George W. Bush and the Iraq war, and I was right there with them. Who's speaking against it, the prize. Maybe part of them was like, okay, well, maybe we'll give this Republican president who actually did something the prize. I don't know. I guess anything's possible. I know what you mean, the biases of international elites and whatnot. I get it, but you never know.
What do you make of those monks saying that they're going to nominate him, the 180 monks? What do you make of that?
I thought it was wild. And, without, I don't want to get into that too much, but like with my foreign policy views, which are anti-war, I'm I've been this way since I was 19 years old. I was a Pat Buchanan anti-war guy. Traditional Christian sects, like those, were those Christian monks, or were they like Tibetan monks? Like, what kind of monks were they? I don't even know.
They look like Tibetan monks, but I can't really tell for sure. That's what it looked like, but I don't know for sure.
Well, same point. A lot of old ancient religious orders, to me, including, the Catholic Church, we're talking about these Tibetan monks maybe, seem to get the issues of war and peace right in a way that newer parts of religions don't. And I'll leave that at that. So that when I saw the monks doing that, that's where my brain goes.
What's going on with your buddy here, Ted Cruz? What's he up to lately? What kind of trouble's he causing?
Well, I mean, besides getting in trouble with Tucker Carlson a couple of weeks ago about not knowing where in the Bible that he does this thing. This is a evangelical dispensationalist thing, and I grew up in South Carolina, so I'm well aware of it. That if you're on the side of Israel, and they mean the state of Israel founded in 1948, not the Israel of Abraham in the Bible. I mean, they mix it all up. Ted Cruz bought into that. I think he's doing it for political reasons because he's in Texas and there's just a lot of that. But Tucker Carlson's like, okay, Ted Cruz, you say you're for anything the Israeli government does because it's this part of the Bible. Where in the Bible is that? Ted Cruz didn't know. So he looks stupid. It's in Genesis. And I'm not a biblical scholar, but I do know that much. But yeah, he looked like a jerk, like a buffoon. And sometimes people look like what they are. I don't really like Ted Cruz. He used to pretend to be like a Ron Paul libertarian, which is what I am, and then is very far from that now. He's a charlatan in my book.
Are you a fan of Tucker? Are you a big Tucker guy?
I'm a huge fan of Tucker Carlson. I think he's one of the most important voices in media right now. I think it's him, Joe Rogan, people like Theo Vaughn, who are kind of hard to pinpoint politically. Tucker Carlson's definitely right wing, obviously, but interviewing the people he's interviewing and saying the things he's saying, whether that's Representative Tom, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I love Tucker's interview with George Stephanopoulos' nun sister who lives in Gaza, if you happen to see that. And her is a Christian Orthodox nun is what she is talking about the reality of what's going on there. That made a lot of people talk. Who else would do that? You wouldn't find that on like Fox News or CNN, but you find it on the Tucker Carlson show. Joe Rogan would do that. Independent media would do that. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Tucker Carlson, where he's coming from. I don't like everything he does. I don't like everything anyone does, but I like a lot of what he does, and the stuff he does is important and shining a light on things that people wouldn't know about otherwise.
Is there a way mainstream media can kind of keep up with independent media nowadays? Because it feels like independent media is kind of like destroying them.
They're lapping them, and there is a way, John. If you're MSNBC, you can change your name to MS Now, which they did. I'm kidding. That's stupid. Like, but I think even was it Joe Scarborough or Rachel Maddow was like, we're independent media too, and now we're away from NBC. I'm like, get out of here with that crap. Nobody believes that. They're wanting to be. Look, I've seen many people over the years say I'm a libertarian when they're not really, and I'm never mad at it because what they're saying is libertarian is something that's positive, so I want to be that. I've heard Sean Hannity say he's a libertarian, Bill Maher say he's a libertarian. I'm never mad at it because I'm like, that's cool that you want to be that, but here's why you're not. Independent media, anybody in media, legacy established is what MSNBC is. They're going to say, I'm independent media. Well, no, you're not. You've been here for 10 gazillion years and telling us this lie and that lie. The reason independent media exists, the reason it's more popular than you are and certainly has more integrity is because you suck. So, yeah, that's kind of where we are with that.
Yeah, I was just watching a video from independent media claiming, or not really claiming, they're proving how mainstream media would like lie and plant lies over the years and stuff. Like Putin, they said he said something, and then they went back and he said the exact opposite. Like they pinpoint and poke holes in mainstream media, which kind of just proves the point of like, yeah, they suck anyway. It's, stay away from them. They're really hounding it home, if you will, that they're terrible.
And they do it at the behest of government. If you watch MSNBC in particular, and all the old cable news outlets are guilty of this, they're guests. Like half of them are like, here's FBI agent, blah, blah, blah. Here's the CIA's. It's like, these people are paid to lie to you. Your job is to question them. And they bring these people on as their experts to tell you how it's really going in Israel, Gaza, or Ukraine, Russia. And it's the government narrative. And that's not what media is supposed to do, but that's media's perception of itself is to serve power. They're mad at independent media for doing what they used to do. It's as simple as that.
I forget his name, but the guy, he was a part of the Iran Contra controversy, and CNN
Oliver
used to
North.
always, yeah, it's CNN used to always bring him on as like a contributor, and he would say like the opposite of like what you would think that he would say, kind of thing. It was almost like they brought him on, obviously paying him to say what they want him to say, or whoever is telling him what to say, and it's the opposite of what he's done in the past. And it's almost like if anybody looked into this guy, you could see, poke holes right in everything he's saying.
Yeah, they do that all the time. I think I saw James Clapper, the former FBI guy on TV, like as an expert on whatever channel it was. To refresh everybody's memory, James Clapper is the guy who went before the U.S. Senate, was asked by Senator Ron Wyden, does Homeland Security spy in mass surveillance of American citizens' data? And he said no. Well, that lie prompted Edward Snowden to do what he did. That's who James Clapper is. He's a liar. He lied in front of the Senate. People talked about, maybe charging him with that. That was the expert on some cable show. That's how they are. Tucker Carlson's expert is some Orthodox nun who's living in Gaza who's going to tell you what she saw. Like, that's a big difference. So, yeah.
The best, though, is that if you look at what they're categorized, the news, they're categorized as entertainment. So it's like, we're lying because we're just entertainment. We're not necessarily real news here. We're lying to you.
It's all mixed up. So I was a big Rush Limbaugh in my teens when he was new. And he would always do this thing. Jon Stewart does it, too. And I like Jon Stewart, though we disagree on many things politically. He would always do this thing where, like, if people took Rush too seriously, be like, I'm just an entertainer. And even as a kid, I was like, you are an entertainer. You're also a guy where people get their news and opinion. Like, it's both.
Yep.
And Jon Stewart would do that too. All the college kids who were watching The Daily Show in the Bush era. And I loved watching it. That's back when Colbert used to be good, came on right after Stewart. He would do that. People would be like, so-and-so, this percentage of young people believe this because they learned it on The Daily Show. And Jon Stewart would say, I'm just entertainment. No, that's the same thing Limbaugh would do. You're both. And that's kind of where we are. Joe Rogan is somebody that'll have on actors and musicians and also serious political figures. It's both. That's what all of this is. I think that's what all of news is. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. They don't have to be separate. It is what it is.
Do you like when Rogan has on, let's like, obviously Anna Paulina Luna, everybody knows who she is. Like, do you like when he has like legitimate guests on, but sometimes they go into the weeds. They're talking about like a Book of Enoch and stuff. Do you like that? Okay. You like when he kind of goes off the rails a bit.
That's part of what I like about a show, and part of why I think he's popular. He's intellectually curious.
Yeah.
He's not the biggest genius in the history of the world, but he's not stupid. He's where most people are. They have questions about this, that, and the other. Oh, I've never heard of this. Let's talk about this. I like that. I like that he has such a diversity of people on, and politicians that go on there in particular, they know what they're walking into, and they're confident enough to do it. Like when Kamala Harris didn't do it, that told me what I already thought about her. When Trump did it, I was not shocked at all. I'm not speaking to his character. I'm talking about his confidence level and how comfortable he is just speaking openly. And she's not.
And Bernie went on there.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders.
Hats off. One of my favorite Joe Rogan interviews ever was Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes, very good.
Glenn Greenwald, and he had Tucker on and people like that. I want him to get Rand Paul on, so we'll see.
Hey, yeah, make that happen. He's super high IQ. Joe Rogan, he's like well read. Yeah, he definitely. I just find it so funny sometimes. I'm like, oh, let's see what she's going to be talking about. They'll start talking about the Book of Enoch. I'm like, wow, that's really like into the weeds here. This is interesting. Like, but made for a really good conversation.
Yeah, my biggest problem with all these people is I don't have enough time to listen to everything I want to listen to. Like, I want to listen to every Joe Rogan interview, even if I don't know who the guest is. It's that good. Every Tucker Carlson interview, all these interviews like 3 hours. Every Theo, I want to hear all of that, and I just kind of pick my spots. And I'm listening to wrestling podcasts on top of it, and a couple other things. So, that's my biggest problem is quality and too much quantity. Pretty good problem to have.
Yeah, you'll never get bored. You'll always have some Rogan podcasts to listen to or wrestling.
I remember just listening as far as wrestling to Bruce Pritchard's podcast, who was sort of a pioneer in that. I know Colt Cabana did it first, but it really started to explode with Bruce's. You tell me if the history is wrong because you're in this business.
Very true. No, yeah, definitely.
We're on a podcast, but I would listen to Two Man. I would listen to the Shivani show, all the Conrad stuff early on until you got so many, and then there's Busted Open. There's all this other stuff. I catch some of that with the Conrad stuff some of the time. I used to listen to all of it religiously. That's all it is time. It's because it's all good. It's all good. There's only so much time in the day, and I'm a writer, and I got to do that, and do other stuff. So much information out there. I think it's a good thing.
When you're looking at, obviously, the landscape of news and everything, there's so much out there. There's also so much wrestling out there. I feel like now, even more so, there's even more wrestling content. Now ESPN, the DTC, direct to consumer, they're putting that out. That service, which we were talking about a little bit off air, it gets so confusing and it's so watered down. I don't know, like, do you need Disney Plus, Hulu Plus, ESPN Plus, like regular? It's just so much. Do you think wrestling is almost becoming too much wrestling? Are they putting too much content out there?
I don't think there's ever such thing as too much wrestling. I've always said that. I love wrestling better than the worst wrestling I've ever seen is better than most of what I see on TV. So
yeah.
And I'm a lover of movies and certain TV shows and whatnot. But with the ESPN thing, and this is what we were talking about, what I've seen is it's going to be a service that costs $30 a month to get basically what we used to get with Peacock. Is that going to help AEW? Because let's face it, a big part of why WWE is so popular right now is it's so accessible. They're big shows, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, stuff like that. If you have Peacock, you can watch that. There are countless thousands of people who would not pay $50 for that, but they'll watch it if it's on their Peacock that they already have. How many people are going to have this $30 a month ESPN thing? There's tons of sports fans out there, but what is this that they can't watch the NFL game or the NBA game on something else they already have? I don't know. I don't know the answers to that. I'm a free market guy, so I hope this helps AEW, who I'm always rooting for. I'm also rooting for WWE. I don't know. I have questions. I'm not a wealthy man, but I do all right. But like, do I want to pay $50, about a month for AEW, which I do gladly because they always deliver? Do I also want to pay $30 for this WWE thing, or do I read about it? I don't know. I'm probably going to watch it because, I always have, but I don't know. I don't know how this looks exposed companies. TKO's not stupid.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like it's too much. It's too confusing. I'm going to really have to bear down and start reading what each of these services is and what they provide and everything else. But it looks like they said 47,000 of live events will be on this $30 a month channel. So it's not just WWE. It's football and soccer and hockey, and it's a whole channel or channels, and it's a ton of stuff. So I still think 30 might be a little too high, a little too crazy. But I feel like if they just did PLEs maybe separate or put them on that $11.99 service, if they got to switch it up. But apparently WWE is a part of this gigantic 47,000 live event thing for $30 a month. That's what it looked like so far. But there's a lot of stuff on there. It's too much stuff.
Well, most people are normal American males and like football and stuff I only like pro wrestling. I don't watch anything. So that's not appealing to me, the extra content, but it will be to others. Didn't Tony Khan say with Max that pay-per-views in the future might be $25 or $30 instead of $52? Am I crazy? Am I imagining that?
Yeah, that was a while ago. He said that. Yeah, but and now they're on Prime right now. So Prime Video. Right. So I don't know how Max gets back into it, or if they're, I don't know how, but
I'm just saying nice. That price coming down might be a factor if WWE is doing what it's doing, combined with I can afford to go to a live AEW show and maybe not the WWE show where ticket prices are so high. It's competition. Somebody with a family and kids and they like wrestling might lean into, for financial reasons, the AEW side more than the WWE side. We'll see.
They obviously, TKO and Khan, those guys, they know money and they know how to make money, and they're making billions more than ever. WWE is worth $12 billion. It's just crazy. They're making money hand over fist. But he was saying sometimes you don't just give them something for lower and have more people jump on it. He was actually saying if you put it at a higher price point, you actually get more. And I was like, well, let's see how long that lasts for. But so far with ticket prices, it has been working out for them.
It has been, and hats off to them. And if the quality of their pay-per-views are always good, they feel very different from AEW, and I like that the companies feel different, but they're good. I rarely watch a WWE show and come away going, that sucked. I might say All In was better or something like that, or maybe a WWE show was better than an AEW show on the pay-per-views. That's not usually the case. But yeah, TKO knows what they're doing. as far as the price and perception, I remember one of my bands years ago, we had recorded back when that was a thing. And I was like, should we just give these out free at shows? And the guy that was producing it said, absolutely not. He goes, those will be strewn all over the floor of the club. It has to have some value. Sell them for $5, $10. But if you just give them away, they're worthless and they probably won't even get listened to. He's like, they might not want to pay $5 or $10, but tough. Like, it has to have that kind of value. So what Nick, I think you were talking about Nick Khan was saying, that's just how our brains work. He's right.
Interesting. WB many, many years ago, when we were talking about 30 years ago, they did the In Your House, which, yes, they were a little, probably a bit, maybe an hour shorter. They were about 2-hour pay-per-views, but they were half the price. They were cheaper. Mm-hmm. They didn't draw flies, really. I mean, they didn't draw well the In Your Houses at all. And you would think, as they lowered the price point, more people would buy them. That's not true. It almost lowered the price point. So in the minds of viewers, myself included, you kind of think you might be getting a lesser show. So you would skip a bunch of them and then you would order the big ones. So it necessarily doesn't always work out when you have the lower price point.
It is. You know, I have TNA Plus and enjoy their shows. They just had, was it Emergence a week or two ago? And I liked it. And like, who won, but well. The guy thought it was Mike Santana's time, or the show before that, actually. But anyways, my point was, I love watching those shows that just come with there's a month TA Plus, but there's a different feel to the one they asked for $40 for. You know what I'm saying? There's a different excitement. I pay the $40 depending on what it is, but usually do. God, I remember back in the Nitro era, my brother and I buying pay-per-views where it was like $10 a piece or $15 a piece for 20 or 30 pay-per-views. That was a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. My dad used to always get them for us, thank God. But he didn't want to get 2 a month. Remember, like WWF and WCW back then? He didn't want to do that. So usually a buddy of mine would get one and I would get the other. Usually I would get the WCW one. So, sometimes it would get expensive.
When Nitro was hot and the NWO and all that, I was just watching the WCW pay-per-views. When it flipped, I stopped ordering the WCW and I was ordering the WWE ones. Because I think I told you, my brief period where I stopped wrestling was early 90s WCW after they sold to Jim Crockett and all that for a couple of years. And it was the NWO/ECW era that got me back into it around, was it 94, 95? So NWO was what, 96? That was for Bash at the Beach, 96. Yeah, so that's what really got me. I was watching, when did ECW start? When did franchise throw down the belt? Was that 95?
94.
94. So I didn't start watching ECW just then, but my friend who I grew up and got me into wrestling was like, you got to see this. And it was like mid-Charleston. And the first thing I ever saw in ECW was Rob Van Dam and Doug Furnace wrapping steel chairs around each other's heads, just like repeatedly. I'm like, what? What is it? Look at all these chairs all over the floor. What are they doing? So I was watching ECW, but not WCW, not WWE. Then NWO happened not long after that, a year, 2 years, whatever, and that's what brought me back. So we were talking about pay-per-views. I'm way off the rails here.
Hey, I love it. We sometimes you got to go down that well and see what's down there and check it out. Yeah. With like obviously the pay-per-views and the content, you just look like, wow, this is on here, this is on here. Oh, Saturday night's main event. No, now I got to keep Peacock if I didn't want to. Obviously, they didn't want to lose a bunch of subs, so they're kind of teasing you like, oh, we'll still have Saturday night's main event. So Peacock still wants to be in the WWE business, obviously.
Yeah, and I don't blame them, but like the last Saturday night's main events have been all right. I like seeing Jesse Ventura as much as anything. I think he still does a great job. But like, am I going to have the only other thing I've ever watched on Peacock is that Poker Face show, which I love. It's great. Me and my girlfriend watch it, but we're done with this season. I don't have any need for Peacock once the PLEs aren't on there anymore. So I'm probably not going to have it. And I'm sure they're anticipating that. That's why they want the Saturday night's main event. What does that happen 4 times a year? All right. I guess I'll pay $8 or whatever Peacock is now 8 times a year, but I'm not going to have it all year.
Gotcha. And Day of the Jackal, I told you that's a good one. My buddy loves Twisted Metal, which is on there. So apparently there's a couple of
shows on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So with that, though, it's like, well, where does the library go? And now the library is up in the air as far as like their old content and their old pay-per-views and their old shows and stuff. But like that's up in the air. Is that going to be on ESPN or is Peacock going to try to get that back? So there's so much like stuff in flux. And I feel like, I guess in the coming months, we're going to kind of find out where everything lands.
Isn't a lot of that going to be on YouTube? The soft, silent launch of the WWE Vault channel. which I've been thoroughly enjoying.
Love it.
And they're just going to get revenue through, advertising on YouTube. Like, there's so much content. I think that's a great idea. When I'm done watching a TV show or a movie on a platform and it's late at night, I usually go to YouTube and find random stuff. I think that's what millions of people do around the world. So why wouldn't you do that?
A lot of that stuff is on the vault. Even the WCW has their own vault in there. So yeah, they are kind of putting a lot of stuff on YouTube. But what's interesting here is, so they're adding more shows, they're adding more pay-per-views or PLEs, if you will, during weekends that AEW is running. So Peacock technically runs out September. The last show is Clash in Paris. That's on Peacock as far as PLEs are concerned. So the next PLE for WWE, there was a rumor like, oh, they're going to call it over the limit, the old pay-per-view. Nope, it is called WrestlePalooza. It is on 9/20. It is in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it goes head-to-head with All Out for AEW. So they're immediately, as soon as they start off on ESPN on the DTC for the PLE, immediately goes the same day. As we kind of like were talking about last week, were they going to do that? And yeah, and it's called WrestlePalooza. They're literally copying it.
Right, but so if you're wanting to watch WrestlePalooza and you have the ESPN service, it's like Peacock where you can just kind of watch it whenever, right?
Yeah, that's what they're saying, yeah.
So on that day, September 20th, I've told you, I think I mentioned it on the show, that I'm going to see Judas Priest that night. So I'm going to miss All Out live and WrestlePalooza live. But if I was home, I would definitely be watching the AEW show first, then I'd go back and watch the WWE show, just because maybe that speaks to my own fandom. I think there's plenty of people out there like that. Every time WWE's done something on Peacock at the same time as AEW, I think that probably happens, AEW first and WWE more than the other way around, or the people watching the WWE one don't even thinking about the AEW one. I'm sure there's a lot of that too. I'm not mad at it because I like the competition, and both companies are great right now. And it's because they are competitive. But I don't see how it hurts AEW. I don't see how it's a significant factor in trying to harm them if that's the goal. Maybe you disagree. I don't know.
It's interesting because it's like, are they trying to capture all the attention? Are they trying to steal the fans? Are they trying to steal, when people put it on social media, hey, hashtag All Out, which would be all day because the pay-per-view's on. Do they want to take that away and make it all about them? Because then people will be tagging WrestlePalooza, WWE, and John Cena, Brock Lesnar, or whatever, which is so funny, by the way. It says John Cena versus an opponent he hasn't wrestled in over a decade. So is it Lesnar? Like, what are they teasing here? They're teasing something for the pay-per-view when they put it. So it's just, are they trying to maybe steal the social media narrative for the night too and for the weekend? Like, they don't want AEW to have any rub.
And they're smart to do that. When AEW started, it was so hot because WWE sucked. All the street cred was with AEW, and that's what you want. You want to be the cool company. And then they got Vince out of the way, and Triple H made WWE pretty cool pretty quickly. And so that hurt AEW a little bit. I think we're in a place now where AEW is getting a little bit of that street cred back with Swerve and Will Ospreay and just what they're doing. I'm not saying WWE is losing it, but it's not where it was a year and a half ago. But I think that is what you just said, being so active on social. They're trying to regain that. It's funny. John Jacobs' book, he talks about an era where Vince and the WWE, like, remember, don't use your phone to film what's going on at a WWE event. They come take your phone or tell you to stop or whatever. He said at some point they figured out that was just free advertising, and that's the world we live in now, and to stop doing that and just let people go crazy, and it's free organic advertising. And that's exactly what it is. Nobody's like, man, I don't need to see that Randy Orton match because my neighbor's phone had it on. Like, nobody's doing that. They're going to go to the show. But it was just a mentality they had. But that's part of the street cred. If you've got fans who are buying tickets who are sharing this stuff on social, that's cool. That's what you want.
I feel like they're definitely trying to control the narrative, like for the whole weekend. They don't want AEW to kind of get the pub, if you will. I do think WB PLEs will hurt AEW. And I do think at Saturday Night's Main Event does hurt AEW, just as far as maybe people were going to decide which one to watch. They picked WWE. When they do the NXT shows, which I mentioned last week because I totally forgot, they have Forbidden Doors the same day as Heatwave. I feel like NXT, there's no like AEW just wipes the floor with them, like they did when NXT, was quote unquote developmental, but not really developmental, because you had Adam Cole and Finn Balor and all these guys on there, and AEW kind of wiped them away too. I just feel like NXT doesn't have that much power, but they still continue to put NXT shows on when AEW shows on. So it's like, man, they'll just put anything competition versus AEW.
Absolutely. The NXT shows do not hurt them. What was the last one they put on the same time was that All In? I didn't even go back and watch it.
Oh, Great American Bash. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even go. And I watch NXT every Tuesday and watch all their specials, but just like so much was going on, it was the least of things. Yep. Definitely was going to tear me away from watching All In. Come on. What a great show that was. I was watching NXT about Heatwave this weekend. This show will have already come out. But the match on there I want to see most is Jordan Grace and Mariah May or Blake Monroe. Like, I want to see that. I don't want to see it bad enough that I'm not going to watch Forbidden Door. I'm going to go back and watch it later, which I can. But the rest of the card doesn't bowl me over like this is the greatest thing ever or anything. But yeah, what you said, when they put up main roster WWE, we'll see what that does. I still think AEW comes out pretty okay, and it does whatever damage it does will be minimal. NXT doesn't hurt them at all when they do that, and that's not a slight on NXT. I like NXT, but you can't mess with John Cena versus Brock Lesnar versus Javon Williams versus whoever. That's not a slight on him. He's a young man coming up, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yep. With Forbidden Door, I feel like it's lost a bit of its cachet. I don't know if it's as interesting this year as it was, because it used to be like must see because those guys you'd hardly see.
I know Tony's not going to do this because he sticks to tradition, but I would name that pay-per-view something else and just have a good pay-per-view. With them working so closely with New Japan, with the TNA WWE relationship, CMLL, and that, like they're already working together. You see New Japan and CMLL people on Dynamite all the time. So like this Forbidden Door thing, it was cool when it started because you didn't have that. Now you see it all the time. When AJ Styles popped up on that TNA show, I was like, when I learned of the relationship, I'm like, that's got to happen at some point. And it did. Cool stuff like that, but it's not novel anymore, which was the idea of Forbidden Door. So I'm sure it's going to be a great show, but it doesn't need to have to rely on that gimmick. They got Takahashi in there, and I like Takahashi, but like they don't have a lot of people to choose from in New Japan right now. Okada's in AEW. The people from Stardom, even, Julia, Stephanie Vaquer in WWE now, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think it's lost its luster as a gimmick. The show will not be bad. It will be fantastic. They know how to deliver.
For sure. Now, what did you think of AAA, Triple Mania? Speaking of WWE, they had a ton of WWE guys on there. What do you think of Triple Mania?
I loved it. And when I watched it, I wouldn't say I had high or low expectations. I thought I was going to enjoy it. I've ordered some of the Triple Manias in the past to varying results. In my opinion, it's been years. Like if Kenny Omega somebody on a Triple Mania, I would order it through Triller or whatever. I thought it was awesome. The first WWE produced Triple Mania on YouTube. The wrestling was good. It was just so different. I was telling my girlfriend going in, is this going to feel just like I'm watching SmackDown or Raw? Or is it going to retain some of that Triple Mania, Triple A feel that I've experienced in the past, though I don't keep up with, the Mexican scene completely. And it did. Like you saw Triple H and Nick Khan and Shawn Michaels and I can never remember the woman's name that ran Triple A all those years. She's always there with the bouquet of roses.
Marcela Pena.
There you go. She's standing there. That's who I'm used to seeing. Yeah. And, they have the Spanish and English. I love Corey Gravebeat on the call. JBL's being funny on the call to me because I'm thinking back to his feud with John Cena and chasing like illegal immigrants down at the border. Do you remember all those? I was like, what the hell is going on here? But he's on the call. So that's kind of funny. And how Mr. Iguana in his own environment, how cool that was and how over he is in the United States. And Dominic Mysterio and AJ. And if you haven't seen it, I just spoiled it. But boy, what a show. I can't wait to see the next one. I can't wait for Worlds Collide when it's going to be, Vikingo against Dominic one-on-one for the belt. And I think Dominic is the new Mexican champion. I think that's awesome. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. I thought he was going to be the Mexican champion at Triple Mania, so we'll see.
The crowd was on fire. I thought the show was great. Anyway, the crowd made it 10 times better. 20,000 people in attendance. Yep. Omos with the surprise appearance, which was great. Micro Man was great. Good stuff.
It was awesome. I also like the cultural overlap. There's a lot of tense things happening in this world, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Diversity, multicultural. Maybe I am a little bit, but I like Mexican wrestling fans are like American wrestling fans because we love wrestling. There's a language barrier and there's some things that are different, but hey, check out what we're doing, because the Mexican fans love what, like, the Americanized AEW stuff at Arena Mexico, and they love the WWE stuff, and vice versa. I'm an American fan, like, I've experienced the Mexican wrestling before, but I'm seeing it again, and wow, this is the best version of it I've ever seen. I love all of that. I think that's great. The same goes for Japan and anything else like that.
Yeah, like Iguana and La Yesca, like that's really over with that crowd. They love that stuff. Di Manito with Finn Balor really got over. They love some some little bit of comedy in their stuff too.
That, yeah, they do a lot of that, and just cultural differences. The person I was watching with, you know how they do the horns in Mexico? They've always done that. It's like, what does that mean? Is it 30? No, that's just Mexican fans. That's just what they do. They used to do something with bells back in the day, didn't they? They like ring a little bell.
Yeah.
That's probably really old school, but just differences. When you watch Japanese wrestling, everybody's way quiet, and they're not like American fans. Glenn Jacobs has told me, and you've heard this from other wrestlers, the first time he wrestled in Japan, he thought he sucked because, they're quiet, and you're not used to that. So the cultural differences are something kind of neat to see.
It's interesting too. We're already doing another When Worlds Collide. In September next month too. So it's like, man, they're really capitalizing on AAA, and that'll be on YouTube. So that'll be easy to watch. But just they're on every damn platform.
Yeah, and I love the free YouTube. That's cool. That was in Mexico City, that show. I don't know where the Worlds Collide is going to be, but it's in Mexico, right?
I thought it was going to be in LA, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Right. You're right. I kind of wanted to be in Mexico after that Triple Mania show.
Yeah. Yeah, the hot crowd. Interesting. Undertaker was there. I know, obviously not on screen, but he was behind the scenes there.
Yeah, I saw that, and they said he's really behind the scenes. How far is Austin from wherever he's got to fly to in Mexico? I don't know, but that's cool.
Yeah, it seems to be doing a lot of stuff now. LFG, that show, his podcast he does from the WWE Performance Center. He's like interconnected there. Triple H has got him working all over the place.
Yeah, these guys, most of them never want to leave the business. If you can't get in the ring anymore, you do something else. And who wouldn't want the Undertaker doing stuff like that? Production, any of that, booking, creative.
Yeah, usually when you have guys that are in charge or whatever, like not always the top guys. Like, let's say Hogan and Flair. Well, they're not really going to be doing that stuff because they're busy doing other stuff, business venture, blah, blah. Like having HBK and Taker is interesting because they were both, main event guys for WWE forever. And now who would you want to teach your students? Would you want it to be maybe a guy that knows, the inner workings, or you want a guy that's been there, done that, and been in the main events? I mean, I'd really want to listen to Undertaker because I'm like, my God, like this guy's a huge draw and he can teach me something.
Yeah, and just because you were a top star, like when Flair was a booker in WCW, he hated it. As even said, he's like, I'm not for this. I belong in the ring. Cody now says, I don't want to have anything to do with creative. Tell me what to do, because he did in AEW. So I get that, but like looking backstage WWE, the creative guys are like Jamie Noble, Abyss,
Bobby Roode, Abyss,
Roode. What's Kurt Angle's son's name? Jason Jordan.
Jason Jordan. Yeah.
Every time he runs out, I say, "Look, it's Kurt Angle's son," because I love stuff like that in wrestling. But yeah, like those guys were not top guys. Kenny from the Spirit Squad, Kenny Dykstra, isn't he still back there? Yep. Hurricane Helms. And the same is true in AEW. I love Jerry Lynn, what he did in WCW, or ECW rather, or both, I guess. But he's backstage in AEW and has been since the beginning because he's good at what he does as an agent. He wasn't the top guy in ECW. I guess he was for a bit. But you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not Cena, but he's really good at what he does there. Dean Malenko. It's nice to see. I love when there's a brawl and all those guys run out, and you used to watch them wrestle, but now they're breaking up fights and doing creative.
Yes. It's just fascinating. It's like, wow, Undertaker's there. And speaking of Triple H, talking about him kind of bringing Undertaker back in the fold, did you see the vacation photos that everybody's making a big deal about?
Yeah, and what? Like, he's on vacation with his wife, and so, like...
People were like, "Oh, he's not as in shape as he was 25 years ago." It's like, should he be? He's 56 years old. Should he be
Right.
as in shape as he was back then?
He's 56 years old. He's still in pretty good shape, probably in
Really
a
good shape.
lot better
Yeah.
shape than people criticizing him. I'd love to see a reverse mirror image on social media. And, who has more on their plate than Triple H? You know, maybe there was a time when he could have pumped iron half the day, but I'm sure he still works out. But like, yeah, screw those people. That's stupid. That's totally stupid.
Crazy.
One thought when we were talking about agents, if you, there's a lot of respect and people rely on Michael Hayes and WWE and have for years. If you would have told me when I was a kid that the like Leonard Skinner, Jack Daniels drinking trios, redneck dudes who I loved and met Michael Hayes as a kid one time, if you told me he was like going to be a creative genius in booking later and like, you know, like the man, I would have been like, what? That guy? I mean, I love him, but like, you know, Ronnie Van Zant wrestler, that's going to be the top booker, you know.
Yeah. No way. Yeah. But what a mind for the business. Crazy.
He's drunk all the time. Well, I guess he was still drunk all the time, even in his role now, but just funny.
What a great mind for the business, though. He's
Totally.
the man. But it's crazy. It's like these people talking about Triple H, 56 years old now. Obviously, had a heart attack. I mean, he's retired. I thought he looked in great shape. These people are nuts.
Yeah, it's nuts. And like, we're all getting older. You're going to look different.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way God made us. Shut up. You know, if you're 5,000 pounds, maybe you should go on a diet and exercise some. But like, I ain't here for that. When I see stuff like that, it's cringy, you know. And as a wrestling fan, I've said this before, I was angry at WWE for a number of years because I didn't feel like they respected me as a fan as much as I tried to respect what they did and enjoy what they did first and foremost. And with Triple H, I never get that disrespect. I don't agree with everything he does, but he cares and he makes it good and he delivers. Even when I don't agree, and that's just wrestling, but he gives a damn. So 56-year-old Triple H don't look like 33-year-old Triple H with his shirt off. Who cares? It's ridiculous.
And wanted to mention this, just kind of hot off the presses, a little interestingly enough here, Hulk Hogan, TMZ is reporting that there might have been some wrongful death here. There might be malpractice going on. What is going on here?
I saw that. I don't know what to think about that. Who would it be? What would he be mixed up in? I don't think the Macho Man came back still mad about the Elizabeth thing or anything like that. I don't know. You know,
they're saying doctor malpractice. That's what they're throwing out there right now.
Well, I mean, they said the same thing about what was going on with Michael Jackson and Prince and their doctors. And these are wealthy men, Hulk Hogan was certainly that. Who knows?
It is kind of one of those like perplexing things where you're like thinking it's heart attack or you think of this, and then now they're throwing it out there with his daughter even saying it was doctor malpractice, that the police have a video cam that'll tells a different story. It's like kind of like fascinating. When there's a death, that people love to kind of throw stuff out there, but even his daughter's a part of it.
If she has doubts, that's who I would listen to first, the people closest to him. Yeah, I don't know. What does Jeffrey Epstein's family think about what happened to him? I mean, he's a bad guy and good riddance, but like, I don't think most people think that was a suicide or whatever. I didn't mean to pivot to that, but with this Hulk Hogan thing, if people close to him are wondering about the circumstances, I think they're worth listening to at a minimum.
Very interesting. I was going down a rabbit hole. I love when you kind of click on something on Instagram, then all of a sudden you get all these videos. You're like, oh, damn it. Like, oh, I should have never clicked on this, whatever. It was an Epstein thing. And now I'm getting all this stuff about Giselle Maxwell's dad and then what he was and what he was doing, all this other stuff. I was like, wow, I never knew that. That's fascinating. What an interesting kind of rabbit hole to get into with her and her dad and the history and CIA, FBI stuff.
Yeah, her dad was a Mossad agent, and there's speculation that maybe Epstein was too. One of the last pictures taken with him had some IDF shirt or something. Epstein.
Yeah, weird. Yeah.
The speculation was like, was this guy just merely a creep who liked underage kids, or did he film it all with powerful people intentionally in his home to hold something over their heads? I think the latter sounds more likely than the former. And it could be both. He's a creep who's into this kind of stuff, but also could use it for a government somewhere. But there's lots of powerful people that don't want us to know about any of this. So we'll see how far we go in learning about the Epstein files. And Thomas Massey and Democrat Ro Khanna are on that, and they keep pushing it. And I want to see something too.
And I just saw the judge won't open up. He won't open it up, right? He keeps blocking it. I guess it was an Obama or a Clinton judge.
Yes, and Thomas Massey shared that story and said this is a smokescreen. They can't do this forever. So we'll see what comes of that.
And who knows if it's true or AI or doctor, but that judge, there was a picture somebody posted with just Ghislaine Maxwell, like an old picture of them together. I was like, oh boy, here we go. Like, oh my God.
That's the thing. They had the list that somebody shared of here's all the famous people who hung out with Max. I don't think Chris Tucker, when he was on that plane, whatever charity thing they were going to Africa, was necessarily involved in weird sex stuff. Because you see like the picture of him and a bunch of other celebrities. He might have been. I don't know. But my point is, these people were so around the rich and famous and powerful all the time. You shouldn't automatically assume that anybody's ever had contact with them, a judge or anybody else was involved in the bad stuff, if that makes sense. Yep. And the more we would know, we'd be able to figure this out. But there's too many powerful people that don't want us to know, apparently.
The pictures that Epstein has that I was looking through that they recently posted, like interesting stuff with some interesting people, like who he's buddies with. And man, like just a fascinating, again, another like rabbit hole to get into is like, man, if you look at all this, like who he's been with and where and all these pictures and who he knows and the Pope and everything else, it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Pope met with him because he's a famous dude. That's what they do, right? Like anybody who's anybody, you go meet world leaders. He's a world leader. I was interested, like when Bill Gates got a divorce, it was right around the time that we started learning how much Bill Gates hung out with Epstein.
Yeah.
Was that,
It's very fascinating.
Interesting. So,
and he has some weird dollar bill or whatever is signed by Gates. It says, I was wrong, blah, blah, blah. And he signed it to him for Epstein. And he had that like on his mantle. So it's like, wow, what the hell does that mean? What the heck is that?
I don't know. No, we don't know because they won't let us know anything.
Yeah. Hey, he had a picture of a very young Elon Musk as well on his mantle. So very interesting. Very young Trump on there as well. But like we just found out, he was not a part of the Epstein files. I guess they just, I guess it was Barr who had recently said
that. And I think Ghislaine Maxwell said that, but she's going to say anything she can to catch a break. But look, Trump may or may not have been involved. I would like to think he's not. The Democrats who are going crazy about the Epstein list, they're right. We need to see it, but they didn't care about the Epstein list when Biden was still president or if Kamala Harris would have been president. So it's not hard to deduce that it's more about their target, which is Donald Trump right now, than about the kids being abused. I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive and they don't care about kids being abused. I'm saying it's just pretty apparent that the political part is the primary motivator more than the crimes possibly committed.
Definitely. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2ManPowerTrip. How about you, Jack?
You can find me at JackHunter74 on X, formerly Twitter, where you can find everything I do there, wrestling, political, and probably some heavy metal stuff too. So, yeah, you can find me there, JackHunter74.
All right. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next week for a little Capital